Hey guys, this is Mayur, and in this video I'm going to introduce you the essential skill set which you will require about Linux for your full stack development or DevOps engineering skill set in the future. In this video I'm going to start from a very basic understanding about the commands of Linux to some intermediate and a few advanced topics which will help you later future when you start integrating your application to the deployments. Let's dive in. As I have mentioned, this series has been intended for people who are on a track becoming a full stack developer or DevOps engineer. Linux is like basic mathematics and its four basic rules: add, subtract, division, and multiplication. This skill set will be helpful on every step for your programmer or other tech engineering career in the future. Now, learning Linux on theory is not something I'm going to run here. And because the name of this series is essential, that means we are going to touch base very few topics with Linux or every other topic within Linux, which I believe would be required and would be super helpful for your development journey. Now, the very first question arises when somebody wanted to learn Linux, where to try the commands. So I'm going to start introducing you the basic ways where you can install Linux on your machine. The first way is you can install Linux right on your machine, whether it is Ubuntu version or CentOS version or Fedora version, but it's a Linux end of the day. So you can install the operating system right on your machine, but most of us, most of the time we carry Windows 10 or Windows 11 as a operating system on our machines. In that case, you can take advantage of virtualization where you can install Linux. The first application which is there known as VirtualBox, which is a product of Oracle, and you can download it for free, and you can download the ISO or DMG file of Linux. For example, you can go to ubuntu.com, and from ubuntu.com you can download the desktop version, Ubuntu desktop, and you can install this Ubuntu for desktop inside the VirtualBox. With this particular combination, you can have a Linux machine installed, but it's a lot of troubles in this particular process. You will often see that these kind of errors might arise when you're trying to install Ubuntu on any virtualization engine, whether it is a VirtualBox or another instance is VMware. So if you go to VMware, even VMware also offers the virtualization solution. There are more than 10 or 15 virtualization solutions are offered by different companies, but out of them, VMware, which is primarily used for commercial aspect, VMware and VirtualBox stands in the crowd. Now, with all these things, you can install it. And if you face such a problems, which you can see saying not in a hypervisor partition and you have to disable or enable in the BIOS, you can fix these issues and still you can have it installed. Now for my students, we have created a cloud-based lab for the Linux, which you can use and try your hands for free. Go to the URL, which has also been given inside the description in this video. Go to the link playground.logicwaves.in/Linux. And on this particular URL, you can start a virtual Linux environment within a browser in a matter of seconds. So for example, here I can start with my name. I can enter my email address. I have to prove that I'm not a robot by selecting the Google CAPTCHA. And yes, 4 cards are there. And I'll verify it. Now I have to verify for bus. All right, looks good. And now you can start this Linux box. Please pay attention. It is only allowed for 2 hours in one session. After 2 hours, it will be reset and you can start again by signing up to the same VirtualBox. You can start VirtualBox and here you get a 2 hours clock, and this particular shell will allow you to start writing the commands which I'm going to teach you. The very first command, I can simply say who am I, and you will get the root access. This is extremely important to have the root access, and not many web-based simulator Linux solutions offer the root access. So let's start our journey about Linux from a very basic commands to some advanced commands. Now, before we start, let's understand what is the agenda for this part one, the first video, part one. The first we have seen how to install Linux, not in a very much of a detail, but I have given you the solution. We are going to start with some basic commands. After that, I'm going to introduce you one very key important question about root, what it is exactly. Few people know root as a command. Few people know root as a user. Some people say it's a location. So I'm going to give a clarification about what it is exactly. I'm going to show you how to install packages in a standard Linux environment. And I'm also going to introduce you a very basic editor, which I personally use, but there are other options are out there. So let's head back to the Linux machine which we have. Let me increase the font size over here. And it looks good to me now for the font. Now, the very first command I'm going to run by is clear. Clear basically cleans the screen, which is equivalent to Control L. So I can also use Control L to clean the screen, but you can also use clear screen and it will clear the screen. Not something very much a high engineering command, but very basic command, which is equivalent to the CLS command on command prompt or on Windows. That's the very first command. Second command is, which I believe I use very often in my full stack development projects as well as the DevOps project, is pwd. Now pwd command gives you an idea of where you are, because if you have noticed that unlike Windows or command prompts, it do not show you where you are in your current directory in the prompt itself. So Linux prompt always either start with $ or some sign. On command prompt on Windows, we always get the folder structure and then we can write the command. But in Linux, that doesn't happen. That's why often we need to find out in which folder we are. And when you type pwd, it will give you your current folder's full path. So currently I am in the root home folder. Under that there's a webmaster, and under there there's one more folder, 103. And I am inside my 103 folder where I'm going to create all of my files. So this is one super useful command, very basic command, but often we need this command. Of course, there are other commands which we are going to see, which will list out the files. But before I list out the files, I need to create some folder. So obviously the basic command is mkdir, which is very much similar from cmd or command prompt. And here I can say my folder 1. I can create one more folder. Let's say my folder 2. Mkdir my folder 2. My command was wrong, misspelled. And now if I type ls, which is equivalent to dir command in command prompt, I can list out all of my folders. Now there are variations we use with ls command, and you can give hyphen and provide more parameters where you can get it listed in a different way. For example, I can simply give ls hyphen l, which will give me the list of my folders. But along with this list, it will give me more details about the permission, the group, the owner, the creation date, the time, etc. details. Now, there are more than one parameter available with -l. How would I know how many parameters are there? So one common trick many experienced developers as well as experienced Linux people use is to find out the help of each command. So for example, I want to understand what are other parameters. I can get it from ls command, or matter of fact from any other command. I can always use -help. Sorry, my mistake, ls -help. So there is double hyphen required. If you use single hyphen, let's see if -h works, then no, it does not work. So I have to use -help. And when I use ls -help, it will give me the help and the availability of all other parameters. For example, I can have an option to use, I need to scroll up because it's a long help. I can start with -a, and you will find the description of -a all over here. Then there is -A. Remember, Linux is the case sensitive operating system. That means for Linux, small a and the capital A are two different things. So you can find the details and the usage of every parameter of literally every command by simply providing -help. right? So for example, here I have one more option. I can clear it by simply saying clear command. I can simply say ls -l and also A. A stands for it will show me the hidden folders as well, hidden files and folders as well. And that is why I can see dot and double dot folder over here, which if I simply say ls-l, it will not show me these two folders because those are hidden folders. So these are small tricks which we often need while implementing our solutions in full stack development as well as in the DevOps engineering. The next command is, of course, you can go inside a folder using cd. So I can simply say my folder 1, and oops, I made a mistake. The mistake which I did on purpose is the spell mistake. Now you can write a full folder name like my folder 1. You can write it like this, the full folder, but there is one optimized way which you need to learn, is that you can hit tab to auto guess the name of your folder. For example, here I have two folders, my folder 1 and my folder 2. The difference is 1 and 2. For example, or let me show you a better example. Here I'll say blue. I create one more folder blue, and now if I go and search for all of my folder, I can have blue, my folder 1 and my folder 2. Now if I start with the first character B, there is no other choices are available. So I can simply say ls, and I can give the first character which I remember, or I probably not remember the full name of my folder or the spelling, or I don't want to write the full name, and I can hit tab. The moment I hit tab, Linux is smart enough, Linux shell is smart enough, it will auto guess the existing folder and it will auto complete it. But this will not be the case if I simply say ls my, because now I have two folders which are starting with my. So when I hit two tabs, it will give me all the options available. Now it will give me options. There is my folder 1 and my folder 2, and it will auto complete until there is a common character. So my folder is a common character, and now I can hit the difference, that is 1 or 2, and I can simply say my folder 2. So this is a habit. If you learn at a very initial phase of your technology learning, it will help you, it will give you the great peace of mind for a longer run when you're solving mission critical problems. So I can go to the folder, let's say my folder 2, I can go to the folder and I can type pwd, and I can see I am right now in my folder 2. Now we have created a folder, we got inside the folder, we have seen a trick. Let's create an empty file. Now to create a file, you will need an editor, but there is better command known as touch, which will create an empty file. So here I can say myfile.txt. Now extensions in Linux is completely optional. You can completely ignore it. You can simply say myfile and it will still create a file. But because we are coming from Windows background, we always think default file as a txt file. So I'll say .txt, and you can use any extension you want. I'll create this file, and if I say ls, I can see my file has been created. But again, of course, this is an empty file. I haven't used any editor to add some data in it, right? So give it a try. Now, two simple commands. I can copy this file. Let me clean my shell by simply saying clear. Now I can say ls, and I have my file. I can copy this file by simply using cp command, which is often comes very handy when you want to copy complete folder to folder. And here I can give my source. And again, I don't like to type the full name of a command or file. So I'll hit tab, right? I'll show you again. I simply type m and tab, or I can type my f and tab, right? But if I say m-i-f and I hit tab, nothing will come up, because there is no file which is starting with MIF. There is no file. Of course, there is a file which starts with M as well as Y. So tab will auto guess the file name and it will auto complete it. So I'll give my source file name and I'll say mycopy.txt. And now when I say ls, I can find my file. It's a very basic engineering's first year's command, copy, move, ls, but these tricks are worth to know if you're getting into the production level development with your full stack development as well as the DevOps engineering. Now I want to move this file to outside of a folder. So in Linux, there is no cut paste. There is copy. There is no cut paste. In Linux, you can move the file. The terminology is different. The meaning is same. So to move the file from one location to another, I can give mv. That is a shortcut of move. I can give the source file name, which is my file, my copy.txt. And then I want to move this file to outside to the folder. From one level up, I want to move. So I can give dot dot, which will significantly give the location of one folder back. So before I run this command, let's type pwd and let's understand where we are. So we are inside my folder 2, which is inside of 103. So now when I say mv, my copy.txt, and when I give dot dot, essentially it will move this file, keeping the name same, to one folder back. That means it will move this file inside 103. But instead of just dot dot, if I say my moved copy.txt, in that case, it will not only move the file, but also it will rename the file to the new destination. So now if I do that, if I say ls now, there is only my file, which we had my copy here as well as my file. But because we moved the file one folder back because of these two dots, now I can go to cd dot dot. Remember, there is a space between cd and dot dot. And if I say ls, you can find the newly renamed file, keeping the content same as my moved copy.txt. Very simple and basic commands. You can give it a try and get used to the basic command about Linux. Now I want to delete the file, and to delete the file, there are various other ways. I can simply say unlink my moved copy.txt, and unlink will delete the file completely from the system. So there is no recycle bin in the shell. It has been deleted permanently. Now to remove the folder or to remove the file one more time, so I'll create one more file here. Let's say file to be deleted.txt. I create one more file and I'll clear the shell. Now here I will ls and I have this file to be deleted.txt. Now, just like how unlink can delete a file, I have one more command known as rm, that is remove. But remove command is being used for two purposes. Remove command allows you to delete the file as well as it allows you to delete the folder. So for example, here I can just type fi and I hit tab and rm will delete the file. So if I say ls, that file has been deleted. So let's try to delete this folder blue as well. So I'll say rm and blue, and when I hit enter, it says you cannot remove blue because blue is a directory. But I just said that rm command also used to remove a folder. That's right. And to do that, you have to provide an extra parameter, two parameter to be precise, rm space -rf, and then the name of your folder, blue. Now what does that mean? -r and f. You can find out yourself by simply saying rf -help, and then here you can see -r means recursive. Recursive means remove directories and their contents recursively. For example, if you have a folder, inside that folder there are few files and folders. Inside those folders there are again few files and folders. And this depth, this chain is going on, and there's a very complex tree structure resides in that folder. In Linux, you can't simply remove the parent folder without removing the child folder. So are you going inside each folder and removing manually? The answer is no. You can remove the parent folder by introducing -r, which will delete the recursive folder first, and then it will delete the parent folder. And -f means force. That means it will forcefully remove the folder, no matter whether it is file or folder. Some people also think that -f means folder, but matter of fact, it's nothing but force, not the folder. And that is where you can simply give the command rf-rf, that is recursive and by force, and name of your folder. So if I just hit tab, I say my folder, and then my folder has been removed. Very simple trick, basic things to remove. Okay, now until now, all these commands are pretty basic. Now I'm going to show you some interesting commands over here. Now, when I said I want to create a file, I said touch, let's say myfile1.txt, and this is an empty file. Now, how do I know? Because I know touch command will create the empty file, but what would happen if this file would have some content, right? So if I simply want to see the content of a file, I can use cat command, cat myfile1.txt. Now, because this file is empty, it is not showing anything. But cat command is used to view the content of this particular file. Now, how do I put some content inside a file? There are two ways. Either you use some editor like Notepad or EditPad or Microsoft Word or anything like that. In Linux case, you can use Nano, Vim, VI, different editors are out there. But before we jump to the editors, there is one shortcut we can use known as redirection. The redirection is very powerful way to provide input to files or to any resource. To do that, first we need to understand one command known as echo. So here I can say echo hi, of course in double quotes, semicolon, and if I hit enter, the echo command will simply print the message you have given. Now you might be wondering what's the use of this? Why would I simply print the message in the shell? So the behavior of echo command, which will give the output of the content, can be captured as an output and can be entered in a file. And this particular feature is known as redirection. How? I can simply say echo hi, and I can use a redirection keyword known as greater than, and I can provide the name of my file. So here I can say myfile1.txt. So when I do that, nothing has been printed because this redirection has captured the output of echo, which is hi, and instead of printing on the shell, it has saved that content inside the file. How would I know? Now I can say cat myfile1.txt, and when I hit enter, I can see the content here. Let me show you one more time. So here I'll say world myfile1.txt. Now guess what? What output you would see if I say cat myfile1.txt? Is it hi world? Is it only hi? Or it is only world? Let's see. When I do that, it says world. What happened? So the redirection has overridden my file content. Before I had hi in my file, and then I used redirection again, and I echoed world, and I stored it to myfile1.txt, and it replaced the complete content of my file. And that's why when I now say cat myfile1.txt, it says world. What will happen if I want to append the content? So here you can simply say echo, let's say World Cup is starting tomorrow. And I'll say myfile1.txt. Now, if I do this, again, this message will overwrite the previous content. That means the content of myfile1 world would go away. But I want to append. And if you want to append, use double greater than. When you use double greater than, it will append the content. And now let's say cat myfile1.txt. And now you can see world, the previous content. And on the new line, cup is starting tomorrow. Very simple, right? So these are some basic tactics we use. Now there's one trick I want to show you. Let me clear the screen. Now if I say ls, I have these particular files. If I say ls-la, it gives me a lot more information. Is there any way I can capture this content and put it up in the text file? The answer is again redirection. So echo is not the only command we can capture. I can say ls-la, which generate the output from total 36 to this my folder 2, right? And this entire output can be captured in a file known as listing.txt. This time I did not see the output of ls-la because that output, the redirection has copied inside a new file listing.txt, which I can simply say cat listing.txt, and you can have the file txt file in which all of the content has been listed. We use heavily this particular technique or trick in DevOps implementation on many Linux system many times. Let me clear this screen. The next command I wanted to show you known as hostname, which gives me the current name of my computer, not my not my Mac machine, but the Linux machine which is there in the cloud on playground.logicviews.in is known as simulator, right? Now, if you want to shut down the machine, and don't shut down please, you can use shutdown. And if I hit enter, this will shut down this Linux terminal. Of course, we have more commands to learn, so I will not use this. If I want to restart the machine, I can say shutdown -R. -R stands for restart, but again, there are more commands we need to learn, so I will not use it. Now imagine the command I'm using clear, right, which is cleaning the complete screen. I am not very happy typing this long command, right? 5 character is really long when you are continuously debugging something, finding out something. Is there a way I can create a shortcut of any command, right? And that shortcut is also known as alias. Alias, different pronunciations are there. You can use the alias and you can use the command. For example, I want to create alias same as command prompt known as CLS. Whereas CLS is not a valid Linux command, but I'm creating a CLS alias, and this CLS command should trigger internally a clear command. So when I do that, now I can use CLS and it will internally trigger clear command. You can create a combination of a command as well. For example, I can create alias, let's say print folder, or let's say ls folder, and it will create a command, let's say pwd && will create one more command, ls-la. And okay, this && must be in the code. So let me create one more alias. ls folder is equal to pwd && ls-la. Oh, sorry, my mistake. And now I can say ls folder, and first it printed the pwd command, that is where I am, and then with && it also printed ls-la from the current folder, and that gives me total 40 and the file permission, group and other details. This way you can create shortcut of your commands which you are using regularly, right? So let me clear my shell. Perfect. Now before we proceed and start with next command, let me clarify one very important question, very commonly asked even in interviews, that what is root? Is it a command? Is it a user? Or is it a location? Actually, root concept is a command. Also, it is a user. Also, it is a location. What it is? So if I simply go to /cd/, it will go to the top level folder, which is also known as root, right? So now if I say ls, you can see all of the folders which has been stored on the root. So just / also known as the root path in the file system of Linux. But if you pay attention, you'll realize there is one more folder known as root over here. So is this root different? No, this is the home folder of a user root. So in Linux, there is a super user. Like in Windows, we say administrator user, which can install, do a lot of things on that machine. Similarly, in Linux subsystems and Linux systems, the root user is a super user. It's a power user. You can do a lot more things with root user. And that's why many times people will not give you root access. But with this Linux terminal, I have given the root access. That's why when you say who am I, it will tell you your current user. That means the root user. So this root user's home folder has been kept on the root path known as /root. So if I go to /root and if I say pwd, this is the home folder of my current user. My current user is root. So root is a command, root is a user, as well as root is a location. The location is /root. The user is a super user, power user, also known as root. And it is a root command, so that when you want to install something, you can use sudo. Or if you want to do something, if you are not a root user, then you have to use sudo. I'll be talking more detail about sudo in the later future, but know this, sudo is the access permission access of the root user if your current user is not root. Fortunately, our current user is root. That's why we will never need to use sudo ever. But when you go to the production environment, certainly you will need to access sudo user, that is system user. And if you want to do something, that is sudo. Let's understand how to install software or package in Linux terminology. Let me go back to the terminal and let me clear all of the previous shell. Now, before we go back to package installation, there's one shortcut which I usually use known as history. History command basically gives you the list of all of the commands in the last session you have executed. For example, now if I say history, I can see all of the commands I just executed. And along with each command, I will get a unique ID starting with 1 till whatever last command is. So last command is 111. The beauty of this particular command is that next time when you want to run some complex command, for example, this ls-la greater than listing.txt, instead of writing the full-fledged command, you can simply call 103 by simply adding a exclamation. For example, I'll clear and I'll say exclamation 103. This will essentially call the original command ls-la greater than listing, and it will generate the listing.txt file. So I can cat listing.txt and I can see all of the file. So not which is exclamation, not 103 basically executed the command from the history I have executed at having the ID 103. So that is one shortcut we usually use. Now, to install a software, you need to understand how Linux system works. So there are different repositories available, and every repository keeps the information of open source software. And these repositories are hosted by different companies like Ubuntu, Fedora, Red Hat, and other than the Linux operating systems companies, there are other repositories like Amazon, like AWS, Google, etc., etc. These repositories will have the information about the open source softwares and their file locations. There are two ways to install software. The basic two ways, there are more than two ways. One is known as yum. Yum is a package manager which is usually used in Fedora or CentOS or Red Hat Linux type of flavors. Now yum might not be working here because this is powered by Alpine Linux. Alpine Linux is another flavor of Linux. So yum might not work here. So if I say yum, it will say command not found. But if you're using Red Hat Linux, if you're using CentOS, different flavors, then in some flavors, yum is your package manager. Other than those flavors of Linux, we use apt or apt-get. These are two different commands, but coming from the same package. In this particular version, the one we have, the Linux version, Alpine Linux, we are going to use apt-get. And first, you need to update your local repository. So when I say apt-get update, apt-get will go to each repository hosted by these open source websites like Ubuntu and Red Hat and CentOS, and it will download the latest information, latest updates of each software available in the repository. It will take some time, but if I say apt-get update, it will start downloading the repository details. For example, the first website it is looking is debian.org, and it is downloading the package information from the Debian. If I just scroll down, there would be more and more websites it is being downloaded, like there is launchpad.net. Now, if I clear my shell, now I am good to install the software. To install software, again, apt-get or just apt will also do. I have a habit of using apt-get, so I always use apt or apt-get, install, and the name of your software. The first software I want to install is Nano. Nano is just an editor which will allow us to type some content from the editor perspective into a file. And yeah, it is already in the newest version. That means Nano is already installed on this machine. Let's install another software, apt-get installed zip. And now it is, oh, fantastic. Zip is also installed on this machine. So let me find out another software. Let's say apt-get install Apache 2. Apache 2 is very famous web server which we used to use for PHP and Perl website hosting purpose. Apache is still being used for different purposes, but this command will install Apache 2 software. And this has been, and yeah, the suggested package and the installation has been completed. Similarly, you can also install different softwares. Oh, okay, so for some reason, let me zoom out. Yeah, let me clear my screen and I will be rerunning my apt-get install Apache 2. It will read the package information and it is asking me, in order to install, it will consume around 7997 KB of additional disk space. Do you want to continue? I'll say capital Y, that means yes. And then it is started downloading Apache and installing on my machine. As soon as it is installed, I can now host my website on this server. Of course, you have no way to upload the files, but if I want to see whether the software is running or not, I can simply say service Apache 2 status. And it is saying it is not running, so we have to run it. So I'll say service Apache 2 start. Starting Apache HTTP server could not reliably determine the server's fully qualified domain name, but that's fine. And now I'm going to see the status and Apache 2 is running. That means I have downloaded, installed Apache, and now that software is running in the background. So this way you can install softwares using apt-get or yum. The command for yum is also very much similar, install and remove. If I want to remove this particular software, I can simply say apt-get remove Apache 2. And it will remove the software. Now if I go and check service Apache 2 status, oh, it is, the daemon has to be stopped. So I'll say service Apache 2 stop, and it is failed because it has been removed already. So this way you can update and install the software you want. So that is the second last topic of this session. And now let's come to the last topic, as Nano as editor. Now you have a very famous editor. If I go back to the browser and if I search for Vim, then Vim is a very famous editor. Back in 1991, Bram Mullner developed this particular software, and this software was coming from Unix background and then was ported ultimately to Linux as well. So Vim is very powerful and very famous editor, but you can also check VI, which is kind of a similar editor in the Unix as well as in Linux. So you can use VI or Vim editor. I personally like Nano because I'm very much habitual to its commands, but you can use Nano. Let me check, where am I first? I'm on the root, I don't want to be there. So here I'll say home, webmaster, and my folder was 99. And here I'm going to create folder, let's say my files. I go to my files, pwd is webmaster/99/my files, and here I'm going to say nano and I'll say 1.txt. The moment I type this, it will create 1.txt file and it will give me editor. Now your definition about editor like bold, italic, auto suggestion is not there. It's a simple, very basic text editor where I'll say this is a simple page from Nano editor, and below you can see the command Control G. This cap stands for control, Control O to write out, Control W to find the text, Control X to exit, Control R to read, etc., etc. Now I can say Control O, that means save, that is write out. I'll say Control O and hit enter. And then because now it is saved, I can say Control X to exit. Or you can directly say by modifying another change, and then you can directly say Control X to exit, and it will ask, would you like to save the file? Now the terminology is a little different. It says save modified buffer. This is Linux language against what we have seen in the Windows. Would you like to save the file? So I'll say yes and hit enter, and I can now say cat1.txt and I can see the content of file. So Nano is the editor we are going to use very heavily later in the future when I'm going to launch full stack development course. as well as the DevOps engineering courses, Nano is our go-to editor. These some of the tricks you will be finding me using very regularly during teaching some of the session of my DevOps as well as full stack. Try it out. I'll be coming back with the second video on the Linux where I'm going to discuss some advanced topic like shell scripting, services, daemons, and few more other topics from Linux. Until then, try these files and let me know in the comment what other topics within Linux or without Linux or other than Linux you would like to know more about it. Thank you very much. Have a good day.